Our friend Todd Halterman is with us. And Todd's been talking strategy for as long. Well, I've known Todd for a lot of years. And we talk strategy all the time. And one of the things I wanted to talk to Todd about today is I've been sharing with you a lot of scenarios on the Home Select product. I've been showing you how the effective APR is ranging from 1.5% to 2.5% almost always. I've seen some as low as 0.5% effective APR. I've seen where people take a 29-year loan, and even though the Home Select is a 30-year product, they take a 29-year loan, make a smaller payment, yet the loan is paid off in 8 to 10 years. Think about that concept. They cut their interest expense by hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I have people say, well, Ron, how can you have a high interest rate and cut the interest expense? Strategy. Now, what do you do with the next step in the planning process? And that's what Todd is the expert in. Todd is a planner, and it fascinates me because 25 years ago when I was licensed with a Series 7 and 66, those are the fancy numbers that they use for stockbrokers and financial planners and all that stuff from the government. You used to look and you say, okay, you call your stockbroker calls and say, I got a good tip for you today. I think you should buy General Electric and hold it for the rest of your life. And there was a lot of people that was a buy. How about AT&T? Now, General Electric stock went to almost nothing. AT&T went bankrupt. Comcast bought the name, and now they call them AT&T, right? So you can't go and buy and hold. You have to have a strategist on your side. That's what Todd does. And Todd and I spoke for a long time about different ways of getting out of debt. And it's not by going and taking on massive payments, because that kills you today. See, what we want to talk about is marrying the Home Select product with Todd Halterman. The Home Select is your liability side of your balance sheet. Todd deals with the asset side of your balance sheet, because if you have a $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 mortgage payment, which is not abnormal in Southern California, and it's paid off in 8 years, what do you do with that money? Call Todd. Todd, what could you do with it if you have somebody sending you $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 every single month? How does that help their retirement? Can they retire a little earlier, maybe?
Well, it creates this stacking your poker chip effect, and the compounding growth of not having the debt and then adding it to a portfolio is a double duty dollar. So 5,000 that's not going out to 5,000 that's now going in creates a tremendous amount of wealth over 5 years when you're actually able to dollar cost average and put that into the marketplace on a consistent basis, just like people do a 401k.
Explain a little bit about dollar cost averaging. What is that all about?
Well, Ron, when people are contributing to their 401ks each and every month, the stock market and the bond market, the prices change. Sometimes it's going up, sometimes the markets are going down. But if you are able to invest on a consistent basis in a timely fashion, so each month investing a similar amount, then you're always buying into the market, and you're averaging out how much you're buying into the market for, which means that you're reducing your risk of timing, which means that if you accidentally invest in the markets up and then it goes down, you feel like you've lost money that you shouldn't have put in yet. So investing the following month while the market is down helps a person average out how much they put to work in their portfolio and what price they're buying at.
So now let's talk about the next step of it, because I am not a fan of a 401k. I like the idea of taking whatever the company's, if you work for a company that matches that, then I like it. Other than that, I'm not a fan of the 401k. But if you're taking that $5,000 a month, and let's just use 5,000 as a round number, it's hypothetical. It doesn't mean anything. It's just educational purposes only, because Todd has all those fancy licenses that I gave up, and we're not giving financial advice today. We're educating. So if you want personal advice, give me a call at 800-306-1990. I don't give it to you, but I do give you Todd's phone number. So go back to that concept, Todd.
Well, I think people's concept is they over contribute to their 401ks because they don't know any better. And everybody says max out your 401k. The IRS wants people to max out their 401ks and have a tremendously huge 401k account when they retire. So people overuse the 401k and have too much money in a bucket when they retire that causes taxation for every dollar they take out. We subscribe to a philosophy, Ron, of trying to help people take out zero tax income when they retire. So we believe if somebody can pay their mortgage off with your Home Select product, which by the way is one of the most brilliant actuarially sound tools I've seen in 20 years to help people get out of debt and not feel the pain like a lot of people feel when they're trying to go through the Ramsey program and having a 15-year mortgage. Your 10-year or less strategy with that Home Select and paying tremendously a less amount of interest and getting your principal paid off first is something nobody's ever seen. And it's really putting the bank market on its ear. So I'm excited about that tool for my clients, especially who are trying to finish that last home run and get ready for retirement. But back to investing. If you can put $3,000 to $5,000 away that you were putting towards a mortgage over 7 years, okay, then you let that sit for just a few years. My clients have what they call a Roth IRA on steroids. And if a person puts money into this tool, then they get 3 times the amount they deposited in tax-free income in their retirement. So imagine taking 5 years of your mortgage payments after you pay the home off and you stack them up into this tax-free Roth IRA on steroids. Not only does your money grow, but when it comes out for income, you get 3 times more income tax-free than what you deposited.
That's pretty fascinating. What I want to talk to you when we come back about, Todd, is what if I need that money and the market's down? What are our options there? And are there other options? And do we really want to have our house paid off with no liens? We're going to talk with Todd Halterman about that when we come back, because we're talking a bit about how, it's two friends chatting with you. We're just going to let you eavesdrop over Todd and I chatting. Todd Halterman is with me today. He's from Alpha 3 Wealth. And Todd takes care of well, he does a lot of things, but he takes care of predominantly the asset side of your balance sheet. But he's a strategist and looking at strategies to help people retire. And combined with what we're doing on the liability side, it's a double benefit to you. Now, if you've been listening to Ron Siegel Radio for any length of time, I am not a fan of a lot of the strategies of Dave Ramsey. His people do great things. I like the idea of being out of debt, but I like you to have good debt. What do I mean by that? So we've been chatting. If you listen to Todd in the last segment, and this is what kind of my take of this is, we're getting this Roth IRA on steroids, and it could be any tool that Todd comes up with. They change, but he's got all those answers for you. And you're investing that money, and over time it's growing. Now, there's a couple of things that happen here that I want to get into with Todd is what happens if you need money and your house is paid off, which is one of many people like to have the idea of having their house paid off. Nothing wrong with that. But you need money in the stock market. It's in one of those cycles. Stock markets always go in cycles. Now, we've been in a long cycle of the market going up, but I don't know next year, the year after that, is the stock market going to be up or down? I don't know. But I like the idea of when Todd says I need money, that's when you take the money. Not before, not after. Now, you have to go the other way around and say, okay, but I have to live, or I want to go on vacation, or I want to retire. That's why you use the Home Select product with it, because even though you may not owe anything on your mortgage, what if you have access to all your equity, 80% of the equity in your house? You got $1 million house, and at any time you want, you can write a check for $800,000. You don't have to call a lender. You don't have to qualify. You don't have to do anything. That money is just sitting there as an emergency fund. Now, Todd, if I called you and I said, I've got all this money in my Roth IRA and I need money, and you say, Ron, it's not the best time to sell today.
Right.
Then you go and you say, okay, well, just draw money that you need out of this other bucket until you say it is a time to sell. Does that ever happen?
All the time, Ron. But a lady can't buy anything on sale if she doesn't have any cash lying around. So cash is an asset class. We believe in keeping a significant amount of capital around as what I call an economic moat to protect their castle, if you will. But moats around castles weren't just for defense. They were also for water to drink and to put out fires when they happen. So often it's a utility overlooked. So, Ron, we always have cash around, or we know where to get it, because we build compartments for clients to make sure they have safety and stability. And then they have inflation protection and interest rate protection. And then they have growth. So it just depends on how your plan is structured. But we really strive to set people up with having their assets located in the right place, so we can get to as close to 0% tax income as we can. So as you said earlier, people over contribute to 401ks. If they can get debt free with your Home Select product, we can literally build a Roth IRA or a super Roth account on steroids to help balance out their 401k accounts. So we can help get them close to 0% income tax when they start using their money to live on.
So you were talking about having a significant amount of cash available. How do you define that? Is that a month's worth, 6 months worth, a year's worth? How do you define a significant amount?
Well, we try to do a predictability model, Ron, where we look 5 years forward to see how they live their life, what kind of big needs they have, whether they have to buy a car or fix a roof, what projects they have. Maybe they want to go on a cruise. And we look 5 years forward to expect how much money do we really think they're going to need or want to use over 5 years. And Ron, then we hold money for a 5-year bucket on things they may need to use it for in the next 5 years. And we keep it very close to our chest, very conservatively held in bank type funds, so that they can make 6 to 7%. But when they need that money, we don't have to worry about poor timing in the economy. And that keeps people from over managing their wealth and being efficient with it, and then not having any surprises they cannot protect themselves from.
So I want to ask you this concept, because you and I haven't even talked about this, Todd. So I want to get your honest opinion on this. If you've got a 5-year bucket and I've got a mortgage of $400,000 and my 5-year bucket says I need $300,000 just to sit on the side. That's 5 years, $60,000 a year of spending. If I park that in my mortgage account so that I'm not paying any mortgage interest, and then I keep putting money in there every month because I don't really need it, it's just parked there, and that takes my 10-year payoff down to maybe 4 years of my mortgage debt. Is that a good plan, do you think?
Well, yeah, it's all about arbitrage, and the key is what's the best use of your capital, and how are you making money, or how are you saving interest by how you're using the funds. So it's just actuarial science, and what I'm so impressed with is the ability for you with your Home Select product to get a bank to work with you to help the principal pay off early and defer the interest. It's one of the most impressive things I've seen in a long time.
And that's the whole focus, is because you and I have to work together with people, right? Because it's a hand in glove issue of dealing with their assets and their liabilities. But the other thing is once you get to a certain stage, if you've got here's the thing that, Todd, I just had this happen, and you probably have, you and I haven't talked about this one. We had somebody that did everything that you hear of in the American dream, right? They raised a family in Southern California, built a business, paid for their house, decided they were going to move to Tennessee, sold their business, sold their house, but paid cash in Tennessee, and then found out that they needed more cash. But they didn't have a job anymore, and they didn't have income, and they hadn't planned prior to retirement. So now they're stuck because they didn't get together. I'm saying, you got to have a serious conversation with Todd before you retire, right? To make all of these plans in advance to know, how am I going to live the next 20, 30, 40 years in retirement?
Right.
Can you change that quickly post retirement, or how far in advance are you setting up your plans, Todd?
Well, you know, when people get 10 years out from thinking they're going to need to change how they live, in other words, they think they may want to be leaving work. And I laugh, Ron, because a lot of people are used to signing the backside of a paycheck. And when you sign the backside of a paycheck, you go home, you earn your money, and you live your life. And most people try to be their own accountant. They try to be their own attorney. They try to be their own financial advisor because, people are worried about not getting good advice or being able to trust the advice they get, or worried about having to pay every 6 minutes that they're sitting in an office. So in business, when you sign the front side of a paycheck, Ron, which means you're issuing the paychecks, they usually have a legal advisor, a tax advisor, a financial officer, and people around them to help them run that company. So the most successful business people I know run their business with a team of leaders. People go home and they sign the backside of a paycheck, and all of a sudden they try to do it all themselves. And that is why a lot of people fail to understand how to run their life when they're going to live on their money. So 10 years out is when a person should start really checking where they're at, to get a safety check, to make sure that they think they might be ready. But 10 years gives them enough time to make an adjustment of either A, paying off debt that's critical to pay off before they're going to try to live on their own money, or B, they need to catch up because they don't have enough in certain areas of their life to be able to live the way they want to, or C, they need to pay off debt and accumulate some more resources. So your Home Select product, if you're 10 years away or more from being able to be ready to not work anymore and sign the front side of your own paycheck rather than the back, that's the time to do it, because we can really make a big difference in somebody's financial picture and take baby steps over 10 years. If you're 5 years out, then it's urgent that we look to see where your safety valve is at and how you can protect your life and not outlive your money. But we prefer a 10-year outlook to test it, and then a 5-year confirmation, and then 2 years out when we start setting up different tools and resources, so it's not stressful 6 months before you're going to leave work.
That's the whole concept right there. It's all about the planning and a long-term goal, a long-term outlook, and having that initial consultation. Now, I don't, I know that there's some things out there that have in the 80s, which for those people that are old like me, they got in trouble with different tax strategies. Are there strategies now? If I've already overfunded, and a lot of people have never heard this term, overfunded my 401k, are there strategies that you can help with to try and minimize taxes even after the fact?
Well, yes. I mean, it's really about where's your pain. You go to the doctor and they say, where does it hurt? Well, it really depends on what your pain is coming from and what caused it. But pre or post activity, we have strategies to help somebody either A, keep more of the profits from what they've done, or B, try to make more money with what they used to have, so that they're actually being more efficient with their dollars. But doing nothing is just not a smart option.
Well, something the fun irony is if you read enough books, doing nothing is a strategy, just not a good one.
The government and the IRS has a plan for you, and they want you to follow it. So just do nothing. That's what they want you to do.
Yeah, it's that two-step tax form. How much did you make, and send it?
Well, it's like the will. For all you out there in America who do not have an estate plan or a will right now, it's okay. It's American, and it's hard to stop long enough to do it. But let me tell you something. If you don't have one, your state government has one for you, and they would be glad to make you follow it.
Yeah, and you know what that means in California. Continue our conversation with Todd Halterman. Alpha 3 Wealth is the name of the company. We're chatting about financial planning. We're talking about liabilities. We're talking about assets. And we're talking about how do you get rid of the biggest liability, or the biggest albatross, the biggest anchor that any of us have. No, I am not talking about my wife. And she's not listening, so I can say that. But we're talking about Uncle Sam. Now, we always want... Todd, you're a veteran, so you can actually say these things. I'm not, so I can't. But I went to a hotel recently, and they said they had a special rate for government employees. And I said, well, from January through April, I work for the government. Everything I get goes to them. I don't know if the girl at the desk didn't quite understand what I was talking about, but
That's great.
but the idea here is how do we minimize that? Let's talk about some things that you're doing to help people. And again, not giving anybody specific advice. If you want that, Todd does that all day long, and his team does that all day long. But what are some things that you see that the biggest mistakes people are making?
I'll give you an example right now. I've got a couple in San Jose, California, who own a rental, and they've had a renter in there for a long time who they trust and is taking care of their property. But their property has grown to $2 million in value, and they're still only collecting $3,500 a month in rent. When they first started renting, the home was worth $1.2 million in value, and they were just glad to have a renter in there. But that home has grown to $2 million in value, and their rent, they can't raise their rent enough to catch up to the value of the property. And they've just been hanging on to the property. But Ron, we did an analysis on that rental property, and they're only making 0.5% after expenses in a return on that property because they've held it too long, because they're just comfortable with who's in it, and they're watching it sit there and just go up in value but make no money. We actually put a plan together for them to sell that property and not pay any taxes when they sell it. And then basically their income is going to go to $90,000 a year in interest on the amount from the selling the home. So they're going to go from making basically $12,000 a year net income on their rent to $90,000 a year with no tenants, toilets, or trash, and they have all their money in cash. And we helped them set up a holding company so that when they sold the home, they didn't pay any tax at closing, and they kept the money in cash.
90,000 a month, 90,000 a year,
90,000 a year. Excuse me.
$7,500 every month
Correct.
And here's one of my favorite words. I think it might have become my favorite word lately. Strategy.
Right.
You just change the strategy of what they're doing. And my guess is, just from leading a lending team and investing in real estate, that there probably was not a whole lot of work on that client's part on that property. The last thing that the renter wanted to do was call that landlord because they wanted them to forget that they were even there.
Yep.
Right. Because they knew that if they're getting the $3,500 a month on a $2 million house, we don't want to raise any red flags. We want them just to see that money in their account every month, right, and forget us.
But people get busy in their life, and if you have a good tenant, it's just as well enough. You don't want to ruin that situation. But they didn't realize they were making less than 1% return on their money because their property was safe. But now they're able to actually help their husband come home from work because he hates his job, because we're now using that piece of asset effectively. But here's the key component. They weren't considering selling it because they didn't want to give 37% to the state of California and the IRS in capital gains taxes. So Ron, I set up a trust account for them, and we helped them hold the house and sell it. And by golly, they didn't pay one dime of tax when they sold it. And they're using that money to basically build their new life.
Holy cow. And the idea here, again, this is all about compounding as well, because, I don't know what all the ins and outs, but if you've got $1 million in appreciation and you're looking at 370,000, if you get 10% return or 8% return on that over time, hold that way for 10 years, then you've made back the money from that you would have given the IRS.
Yeah. And you never get away from paying tax, but you can defer it, and you can take money and income out when it's optimal for you to pay the tax. So we've been doing this for decades. It's a 100-year-old tax law that not a lot of people know how to use. And so I've spent a tremendous amount of time helping people sell businesses and real estate and have better use of their money with less risk, and their income actually goes up.
It fascinates me that you use that term, Todd, because a lot of people, we've been talking about this a lot lately, that there's risk in real estate, there's liquidity issues, there's safety issues, and we've been chatting about that a lot lately because, and those are comments I tell people every time we deal with the asset people, they're always dealing with liquidity and safety and whatnot. When we talk about real estate, we don't think about that, but there are all those same issues. There are the same issues that, safety, liquidity, return, all of those things are issues that we have to deal with even on real estate. So when you bring that up, it's kind of interesting and fascinates me that we can, the biggest idea that I think of where we can deal with with some of these things has to do with diversification. Like that one house, if there's a fire there or somebody falls and gets hurt, they've got some liability issues. Whereas if you've sold that asset, and I'm not saying everybody should sell everything, that's part of the strategy, but now I bet you've got it more diversified than one piece of property.
Yeah, it's but people will do what they're comfortable with. I see cattle ranchers their pastures are full of cattle, but they don't have a lot of cash. I see wheat farmers who have a lot of land, but they don't have a lot of cash. I see real estate investors who have a lot of real estate, but they don't have a lot of cash. So the trick is how to have a cash pile for opportunities and for safety, and continue to build your inventory of assets, but in things that you understand. But my job is to help people create liquidity and safety without getting their head ripped off in taxes, and utilizing professionals like you who have tools to help Americans get out of debt in a quick manner with a lot less pain than everybody else is trying to teach. Because if you can retire with little to no debt, it makes life completely different for the person who wants to do something and have fun.
You said it. As always, I appreciate you coming on and sharing with us. A lot of information there today in our broadcast. If you want to meet Todd Halterman, give me a call, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. He is the best.
Thanks,
Give me
Ron.
a call. I'd put you in touch with him. And thanks for coming on and sharing with us, Todd.